Now it is time to do some real work using Fabric Notebook. By real work, I mean writing Spark codes, because almost all the data engineers would use PySpark code to perform the transformations and actions. Of course, Fabric also provides the Spark execution engine and PySpark library. Without that, no data engineer or no data engineering subject is complete. Now here I'll not be talking about Spark. The prerequisite is that you should know Spark. If you don't, you can enroll for the course that I have, which is this one, Spark plus Kafka plus more, batch and stream processing, data engineering volume 2. So this is the course, and here I have provided enormous details about Spark, and as you can see there are 362 videos and the total time is 73 hours. So you can imagine how big the course would be. But the reason it is big is because it contains Spark from a very basic level to very advanced level. And along with that, there are approximately 16 projects in this course. So please visit my website, www.3am.in, and enroll for this course if you want to know about Spark in details. Now coming back to Fabric, as I've already told you that you should know Spark, and I am proceeding with that premise that you know how to run PySpark code. So first of all, the first step that we have to do is that we have to set the Spark configuration variable for authentication. This is needed because we have to authenticate the Spark session. I had already told you the reason for that. So you have to authenticate the Spark session. Once the authentication is done, the very first job or the very first work that you'll do is you will either read from ADLS or from SQL or NoSQL databases. If you are using SQL databases like Azure PostgreSQL Flexible Server or SQL Server, or NoSQL databases like Cosmos DB, of course, you'll have to use their corresponding connector to read records from those data sources using PySpark on Fabric. But I'll be showing you using ADLS only, ADLS as the source. And I'll be considering the Mendelian architecture. Now, in most of the Mendelian architectures, the bronze layer would be there in some kind of object storage or the other, or essentially the data lake. Now, in Azure, the data lake is ADLS or Azure Data Lake Storage. Now, to read from ADLS, we'll be using the data frame reader. It's the same syntax. The format can be either CSV or Parquet, ORC, Avro, whatever the format of your source file is. Then you can provide various options and then you'll have to load the file. Now while loading the file in Fabric, if you are using Azure, you'll have to mention the ABFSS path, the entire path that I have shown you earlier also. So let's say you have a container and a directory inside of the container. The way you create the ABFSS path is the name of the container at the rate the storage account / the name of the directory. That's how we read from ABFSS. Now, after you read from ADLS, and in most of the cases, you'll be using the Mendelian architecture, so you have to write it in the silver layer. So the silver layer can be Lakehouse or data warehouse both, but in almost all the cases, it is Lakehouse. The gold layer can contain both Lakehouse and data warehouse. So let's say you want to write it to the silver layer or maybe gold layer also. Then you have to write to Lakehouse. Now, how do you write to Lakehouse? There are three options. The first option is writing to the Lakehouse table directly. You'll have to provide the format, and the format should always be Delta, which is the Delta Lake format, or the open table format, which is provided by Azure. Now, the advantage here is that you do not have to install any additional driver for Delta. So it will be readily available. Then you provide the output mode and then you provide the save as table API. So this is the first way to write to Lakehouse table. The second way is to write it to a path, or using a path rather. The format would be the same, then we'll provide the output mode, but instead of save as table, you'll be using the save API. And the tables that you see here, this is a keyword. So we'll have to mention the tables and then the name of the table. Finally, you can use the files also, wherein the format has to be Parquet, and you have to use the save API. The files here that you see, it is a keyword, and then you can provide your folder name and then the name of the file. Similarly, if you have to read from Lakehouse, there are three options. First is the data frame reader, spark.read.table, which is the universal way to read tables using Spark, then you can use Spark SQL. This is not path, this is Spark SQL. You'll have to run the SQL statement. Or if you want, you can read it from files also. So this is how we can use Spark code, or you can execute PySpark on notebook.